The top image was the storefront we were using last spring, and the bottom image is the storefront we've been using right now and that we hope to be in until May. Here you can see students walking in. I think it's important that it be a storefront where community members can see what we're working on, particularly as the days have gotten shorter and the lights are on, people see activity in the space. And so it doesn't look like an empty storefront. It looks like an occupied downtown space. So here's what we basically do. We've got students giving presentations. There's a big model of downtown on the table that people passing by often stop in and want to know what we're working on. Our focus has pretty much been the downtown master plan. And I don't know, talking about some of the opportunities and the constraints of the master plan, particularly ideas around density and how to make downtown more vibrant. One of the major constraints that we see with the master plan right now is that it really limits density. And I think there's a very nostalgic idea of what downtown should be, particularly from the historic preservation viewpoint. And so you can see there on the right, the historic fabric of East Lawrence and Old West Lawrence are very well established. And so inside the boundary of downtown are a number of sites that could support more growth. One of the things that we've come to realize is that downtown has about 140,000 square feet of empty retail space. And the city's own master plan has a market study that suggests we would need another 1,500 residents to occupy the retail space that we already have. And so when a master plan comes out that calls for way less density, I think it's incumbent upon us to sort of explain to city council and the city manager and some of the building owners that there's something not right here, that you're going to encourage more development in West Lawrence than if you allow the vibrancy to happen downtown. So what the students do is the students have taken opportunity sites and developed schemes with building owners and with city council members and sometimes neighborhood groups to look at what different buildings could look like. This is just one example of a student's project looking at the Borders book site with a grocery store on the first floor and then 50 units of housing. Now, again, to achieve that 1,500 new residents that would just occupy the existing retail that we have downtown, we would need, 30 buildings of this size in downtown. I don't think a lot of city council understands that. And I certainly think that a lot of the stakeholders in the community don't understand that. So we help landowners understand the implications of zoning and density and massing. And then we also do a financial pro forma, all trying to understand for that building owner or that landowner, what would be the highest and best use for that property? What would the real estate feasibility be? And how many units would you need to have to make it a feasible project? Understanding cost, rental rates, sales rates, commercial rental rates is something the students don't typically get to work on in a studio. And so in the 5th year, this is one of the things that we do in the Master of Architecture program. What we do then is we're translating this local knowledge to the national level. The students next semester then take part in the HUD Innovation and Affordable Housing Competition. This particular site is in Atlanta, where they take what they've learned in understanding density and pro forma and community engagement to the HUD competition. And then this whole idea of master planning communities and smart growth and smart cities is reflected by our scholarly research as well. So this is a group of my colleagues that participated in the Sydney Affordable Housing Competition. We won that competition and then participated in 6 workshops with the City of Sydney and the City Council, the Lord Mayor, to try to understand their master planning process as well. So involving students in the work that we're doing professionally, I think also ties in really well. And then finally, probably the topic of this discussion is how do we start to value what this is in terms of a metric? In terms of waived rent, the going rate was $11,000 a month at 10th and Mass. So that was a waived rent of $77,000. At 807 Vermont, where we've been for 10 months, that waived rent is $26,000. And so the total waived rent is $103,000. Now, in a school of architecture and design where we don't even have enough studio spaces right now, we've actually capped enrollment because we don't have enough space. This is extremely valuable to us that landowners and building owners downtown have seen our work valuable enough to give us waived rent and to pay for our utilities. There's no way, however, to put that on a metric that allows us to compete with NSF funding. And I think that our budget, as one of the lowest funded schools in terms of research, that plays out pretty horribly. Why would we be incentivized to do this type of work when it doesn't show up on our metrics? The other thing that I think is really important to talk about is that all of this work is collaborative in nature. And while our P&T faculty evaluation plan was revised in 2018 to credit collaborative work as full credit, as if it were sole authorship. One of the problems is that I know that academic analytics does not recognize collaborative awards. Any honorific award that we receive, and a lot of these master plans and projects have won American Institute of Architects awards, somehow academic analytics does not recognize collaborative awards, which is really antithetical to everything that we do in our school. And I question why that is. And despite my complaints, they've told me that, you know, the AIA does not list individual architects, which is not true.
On to the question, though, really quick, of the validation or importance in your promotion and tenure criteria. For example, Kim asked a question about that. How is that something that the school has worked on and made some changes to that allow and recognize not only collaboration, but the fact that you're working with communities?
Yes and no. I think that certainly our faculty evaluation plan recognizes collaboration. And like I said, I think it was a huge victory to credit co-authored creative work as sole authorship. At the same time, that is not reflected in any budget model that I've seen, right? That's the real problem. And so when the rubber meets the road, why would a chair or a dean incentivize collaborative work when sole authorship and honorific awards plays into a metric that then gives us more money?
Yeah, and you also point out that the school is in a situation where it's having to cap enrollments because there's not enough space to do this type of collaborative work. So getting those incentives right and connecting it to the space management itself on campus and partnerships in town is all part of the mix in order for this to work for faculty and our communities. How do we measure engagement in the community? This is something that the consortium is thinking about. Different kinds of ways of measuring engagement, not only the products of engagement, but also levels of engagement with the community. So anybody want to tackle that one?
I can provide an example, Chris.
Yep.
So I'm Emily Roundtree. I'm the Associate Director in the Center for Service Learning. I've been working with Chris on this subcommittee of the Community Engagement Consortium and thinking about faculty rewards at the institutional level. And one of the measures that I know, this is just like a real simple example, but at the University of San Francisco, what they do is they have all of their service learning courses. So those faculty that are integrating community engaged components into their course and working with their students and working with partners as part of their course and themes and theories of what they're learning. Is that they actually count the service learning courses as more than one course. So when they go up for promotion and tenure, the course actually counts as like 1 1/3 courses. And so it kind of gets them to the number of courses that they need for promotion and tenure a little bit quicker. So that's just one measure. It's pretty simple, but there are kind of ways that other universities are working around this way to quantify what folks are doing in the area of community engagement, because it's really hard to measure and it does take so much more work, but it ends up being, as we know, so much more worth it for the folks who are engaging in it.
Well, maybe I'd like to respond to Niels's comment about the budget model. I think the idea that Emily floated from San Francisco, the partners I work with at the Downtown Design Center, Nilu Vakil and Gregory Critchlow, are untenured. And so an additional 1/3 class would make a huge difference for them and their teaching load, and try to cover some of the efforts that they have for these late night meetings and weekend meetings with community groups. But at the same time, as a former chair, that just means I need to find more people to teach the classes that they're getting credit for. And so if there's no financial incentive from some kind of budget model, then that's a losing proposition all the way around. It may help the untenured faculty, but it doesn't really help the sustainability of a program.